I'm very excited for today's episode with Gordo Byrn. Gordo is a consummate masterlead. He's also the winner of Ultraman Hawaii, the author of From Lemon to Legend, and co-author of Going Long. In short, Gordo is an icon of endurance racing. You're going to love this interview with Gordo, where he invited us into his home in Boulder to cover a wide-ranging set of topics for every athlete over the age of 35. Gordo's approach is profoundly simple. It's reliable, it's digestible, and this is one of the foundational interviews for any masterlead. I hope you enjoy the time with Gordo as much as I did. Gordo, absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. I love, by the way, the new book.
Thanks.
And I especially love the intro to it. And you start out by talking about motivation. And you have a line in there that says, being an amateur athlete is a good life.
Yeah.
And I love that. It kind of, there's a lot embedded in there. How did you come up with that?
So, I mean, the easiest way to explain that is I came up with that realization by not being an amateur athlete and remembering what my life was like before I decided to change my life. So the first time I changed my life was in my mid-20s, and I was really unhealthy and not fit, and I made a decision just to go for a walk. And that walk turned into a habit of walking.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, we would literally walk to the pub. And then, so we didn't change our lifestyle, which was kind of unhealthy in a sense. Initially, we still drank a bunch. We didn't eat very well, but the fact that we started walking around, it started the change.
Yeah.
And then walking became hiking, became trekking, became mountaineering, and ultimately that led into triathlon and led into an athletic life.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know at the time was that I had potential to be very good at sport. And so I went from novice to a developing athlete to a top amateur and ultimately to a top elite athlete. And that title, From Lemon to Legend, is really about me, and my co-author gave the title, and in the foreword he kind of explains that process of going from a legend ultimately to a champion athlete, and then over time through this concept of a legend. He lives down in New Zealand, so okay. Australia, New Zealand, it's kind of a saying they have, it's like, hey mate, you're a legend. And our other co-author, Julie Dibbins, is also a friend of mine here in Boulder.
Okay.
And they're both very experienced coaches, and I'd been working with them for years, watching, bringing in their workouts. Yeah. And when I decided to write the book, I felt rather than taking all their best content and branding it under my name, I would write it in partnership with them. Yeah. And that would be a better way. John's a writer, Julie isn't. And so it was a chance for the three of us to come together and really put something out there that hadn't been done before. In other words, a lot of times people will buy a book to prepare for a race. So training for your first 5K or your 10K or a marathon. And the first book that I had written with Joe Friel was about using Joe's method to prepare for an Ironman. That book's called Going Long. We wrote it a number of years ago. This book's a little different. It's more a philosophy of exercise and a philosophy of how to approach training in general, how to approach nutrition in general, the relationship between mental state and nutritional choices, and then my philosophy of each of the sports, running, cycling, swimming. And then we also get into combination workouts and a philosophy for how to train for specific events, but we're not about laying out 12-week plans or 15-week plans. Readers can get that other places.
Yeah.
We wanted something that would apply very broadly. And John sums it up well when he said, you could spend your whole life working through what's in the book. And that was really what I wanted, because I wanted a chance to work with John and Julie for a couple years and pull in everything that I'm going to need for the rest of my athletic career and then put it into that book.
Yeah.
So triathlon, running, cycling, swimming, there's a ton of stuff. And then for the workouts, we linked up the swims and things like that. So you didn't end up with like 60 pages of swim workouts in the book.
Yeah,
and we just put the links in.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I've got a video series, which is the online companion course, if you like, because I know a lot of people prefer to learn via videos these days.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily sit down and read through 400 pages of John, Julie, and me. And so that's on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and we're publishing short clips, 4 to 7 minutes, where we give a key concept. And so each chapter is probably going to have somewhere between 7 and 10 clips that explain how we want to go about teaching those concepts and how you can apply it into your life.
Yeah. I think it's interesting for Master Lead. One of the things that is front and central is the motivation or the purpose, kind of the why, because what we do is hard, right? And even being an amateur athlete in a society that generally doesn't reward or support that very well, in our American society. I found the notion in the process that you went through in there, where you sort of take this mathematical formulation where you take the inverse of the things that had worked or didn't work and said, how do you apply them to make them better? How do you find the time for that kind of mental gymnastics? Where do you get those insights? Is it when you're on those runs? Is it when you're sedentary, quiet? Like, how do you come up with that?
Okay. So the first thing is habit formation. How do we create a habit of just basically movement? That is, and then from that, I like to say, keep small promises to yourself. So this whole process, for whoever's listening, is going to start with small promises. And it's not a case of massive transformation. That won't be sticky. So if you're having trouble with your consistency, you need to lower the bar. And this is a concept that people might resist, because they're like, well, how can I get there if I don't go, if I don't completely revolutionize my life? Well, the point is, it's going to take you a long time to get there, wherever there is.
Yeah.
The reality is there is no there. You're not actually going anywhere. What we're trying to do is we're trying to transform what a normal day is. And we're going to do that very gradually. And it's going to take, I encourage, when people would come to me and ask me to coach them, I say, well, first thing, you got to give me 500 days with an open mind.
Wow.
That's the minimum. So you're not going to judge me or yourself or the protocol for 500 days. And
Wow.
that's
That's
minimum.
a commitment.
Yeah. But
And is that what you're looking for more than anything? Is that commitment?
no.
Okay.
No, no. I'm not looking for anything.
Yeah,
I
true,
mean,
fair.
I'm good. But the reality is, you need to start out at a pace that you can sustain. And the reason you may have lost your health, and I've lost my health a couple times in my life, and the reason you lose it is because you were on an unsustainable path, whatever that means. And so we need to right the ship in a sense and get ourselves on a sustainable path. And what is sustainable? Small steps every day. And so it's a case of, what I suggest for people is one thing that moves you forward every morning. And it doesn't necessarily have to be exercise or lifting weights, but it is one step every morning before you eat breakfast. And it's just really simple. So whatever that is, you just get it done first thing. And that's going to put a win at the beginning of every day.
Yeah.
And then while you're doing that, you're paying attention to what causes me to miss. So if I miss the ability to do that, what was it?
Yeah.
And it's usually staying up late, or maybe drinking, or I don't know, getting too tired, or overcommitting. And so it'll drive a process of simplification, of simplifying the decision making. And most people, not athletes, so all of us, if we have kids, it'll be a similar process. So that baby and that toddler will drive a simplification of our lives. In other words, it gets so hard to
You have no
deal
choice.
with. You have no choice
Yeah,
but to make decisions
Yeah.
and set priorities.
Yeah.
And through that, you actually see, well, what do I value?
Okay.
So what are we going to do? We're going to start with one positive step every morning. And then we're going to remove the things that screw up our ability to make that positive step. That's the starting point. From there, we can expand that window. How do we expand that window? If you have kids, what you do is you go to sleep when the kids go to sleep. And that will give you additional time in the morning. So instead of having this extra time at the end of your day, where you might, well, I used to sit on the couch and drink 2 beers and then go to bed. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do is it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go to bed. And if you wake up in the morning and you want to drink 2 coffees instead and just sit on the couch, that's okay. But at least you're waking up in the morning. And so I was actually in this house sitting upstairs on the couch drinking my coffee. And I was kind of like, it'd probably be better just to do some strength training. And here we are in my home gym. And then I was like, I had that realization. Yeah. But to have the ability to act on that, I had to have that space in the morning.
Yeah.
So now we've described the process. So we're doing something every morning. We're getting rid of the things that screw up the morning. Now we're going to bed a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So we're not even talking about protocol. So what we are doing is we are rearranging our life.
Yeah.
and creating space.
Yeah.
Now, what we choose to put into that space will be up to us. It could be starting a new business. It could be deciding to get into better health.
Yeah.
It could be preparing for our first sprint triathlon or maybe a 10K. It could be whatever we want, but we have to create that space first and a habit of being able to have self-directed time in the morning. And that will, everything else beyond that morning workout, that morning time, will get better if you watch it.
Yeah.
These changes sound so simple, but they create these positive cascades in our life. And I think that's how it happens. That's how the magic happens and the transformation happens. You mentioned hard at the beginning of the question. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So the hard part is this transformation and restructuring of the life. The hard part is not the training. The training doesn't need to be hard. And this is something that surprises people. I do a lot of exercise, and 2% of the exercise maybe would be what I consider hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that would be, so 95% would probably be what I would consider, easy, relatively comfortable. And then we got maybe say 3% that's kind of like tempo. So it's not hard, but it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
And then there's like 2% where I'm kind of like, okay, this is pretty hard. But it's about just showing up. And before getting fit, I was a finance guy. And compounding applies in all natural systems as well as money. But our brains are not wired to believe in compounding. In other words, it seems it's like exponential growth seems just so
the reward pathways
unnatural.
aren't always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to have, that's why these long-term time horizons, 1,000-day time horizons, it's like, I'm just going to trust. You have to, this is really an act of faith because our brains aren't wired to see it happen. I'm going to have faith that if I just show up day after day, I'm going to move the needle.
Yeah.
And when I came back, so in April of 2022, my kids were old enough and I had enough time to decide to get back into race shape. When I came back, nothing really happened for about 6 months. And it was weird. And then things really started moving. And I think that's an important thing to remember too, is when you start the journey, these first steps, the compounding is so tiny that you might not notice the changes. And so I used to have my athletes, I'd be like, hey, just be sure when we start working together, just take a picture of yourself. You don't need to be in swimwear, but just take a picture because you're living with yourself every day and you're not going to see the change.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look 6 months, and then we're going to look at 12 months, and we're going to look at 18, and you will see the change. You'll see the transformation from these little steps every day. And that's how it works. And then, one day, it took me about 1,200 days to get back in race shape, and I was able to get back into a really high level. But when you think about it, so I'm 56 now, and so when you're 20, 1,200 days is a long piece of time.
Yeah.
When you're in your 50s, you can kind of think back to these blocks of time that you've had in your life, and you realize, well, actually, it's not that long.
Yeah.
And so you need to set it up in a sustainable way because the compounding will be what drives the gains.
There's so much in there, and I love, and I'll just share a little insight I had that I think reinforces that. I was out on a long, slow run probably 2 weeks ago, and it was just one of those like grinding runs, right? It's super slow pace. It's a day when your body's just kind of like, dude, what are you doing? And I keep coming back to two things that have really been important for me. One is setting that purpose and that intention, and that helps you get around these short-term pathways and reward systems. It's like, listen, I've got a 30-year goal of staying healthy, and I set that out there. But then the other is just the man in the arena, right? And constraints are where you innovate, and if you don't put them out there, you can't change, right? And I was on this run, and I'm thinking like, oh man, it just doesn't feel good. And I realized, I think similar to what you were talking about there, is I'm giving myself the opportunity to do two things. Either see little progress and celebrate that, or be curious and understand what isn't working. And that's a very healthy mindset, but if you're not there, to your point, if you're not showing up, if you're not doing the endurance work, right? If you're not putting in the time, you actually deprive yourself of those opportunities. And that was like a little light bulb for me. I was like, this is why I'm here. This is why I am running this slow race because I'm giving myself an opportunity to learn, to get stronger, to figure out how it is I actually reward myself for this very long-term ambitious goal. And it was pretty eye-opening. I've put in a lot of miles too, not as many as you have through the years, but it was even now, and that's kind of the question, is like, to me, running and being a part in the man in the arena is in of itself the reward. You know what I mean?
Cross-training helps too. The fact, being like a multi-sport athlete and mixing it up. We both know Howard. He's really good at mixing it up. Everything from bouldering to tossing med balls around. And I think that can work for people as well. So if you're finding a particular mode of exercise is a grind, there's a lot of opportunities to change that up.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So one of the things that Howard and I have talked a lot about too in general is this idea between specificity and variability, right? And I'm sure you've heard it, maybe even experienced in your life, right? Where, I'm highly running trained specified, to get to my goal, I have to be there. But I'm more likely to get injured through some non-specific motion, right? Going to the chicken coop or, playing football with my son or something like that. How do you think about that, in the grand scheme? Because if you run it out, if the endurance if being in the arena is the game, if you're injured, you're not in the game. Yeah. Right. How do you think about that?
I think all runners should ride for one.
Oh, interesting.
So I think for every minute you do of running, you should do a minute of cycling. So, and the cycling should be treated as supplemental volume. One of the challenges runners have that swimmers and cyclists don't have is this biomechanical limit.
Yeah.
Every runner will hit.
We're all a little crazy too, but
crazy. We're here in Boulder. Crazy is a fact of life in this town. So 1-to-1 is a starting point. So, and why is that? Well, it's much easier to train easy and to get the metabolic benefits on a bike because we have gears. And many runners, and I would say all new runners, don't have the ability to run at what is truly easy at an internal point of view, a metabolically easy
You're
pace.
so right. Yeah.
They don't have that ability. Same deal if you try and learn to swim. The efficiency and economy is so low. There's no ability to have relaxed swimming unless we put the novice on top of a surfboard and we said, okay, you're going to be swimming.
That
like
works for me.
That would do it, right? Like just paddling. So to being aware of that, we need to balance the run program with some actual easy endurance training. So we can do that a couple ways. We can use run walk technique.
Yep.
Really simple. So if you're gonna run for 20 or 30 minutes, I would say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to put a 10-minute walk at the start and I want you to put a 10-minute walk at the end. And it's not a saunter. I would want you to be power walking like you're at an airport.
Yeah.
You're trying to get to the gate. You might miss the plane, but you don't want to run.
Yeah.
So it's walking with intention. And then on a 10-minute cycle, I want you to do a walk like that for 1 minute. That is going to completely change the metabolic profile of what that run is doing inside your body. So if you're feeling like you're on a grind, so you're an experienced runner. So I would say, okay, for an experienced runner, we're going to change it up. Same deal. I want you to power walk for 10 minutes before we start. But then I want you to split your run into thirds. Okay? So if it's a 90-minute run, it'll be a half hour, a half hour, a half hour. In the first half hour, your walk breaks are only going to be 15 seconds. In the second half hour, your walk breaks are going to be 30 seconds. And in the third half hour, they're going to be 45 seconds, what I call the full 45. And I would say what I want you to track is I want you to track total distance covered. I want you to track how you feel and the recovery afterwards. And I want you to do that 3 times before you make a decision on whether it's working or not.
Oh, interesting.
What I have found working with Ironman athletes is that it feels easier and they cover more distance on the same effort with those little breaks inserted. Now, I don't really care why that happens. I'm just happy it happens.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that there is a neuromuscular component of fatigue. And when we change from the running motion to a power walking motion, we change the muscle activation.
Yeah.
And so we send a little signal to the brain. The other thing is there's some theories on fatigue that what slows us down is not really happening in our bodies, it's happening in our brain.
Totally
so by
right.
turning a long run into an interval workout, the brain is more relaxed and the fatigue signal doesn't go through. So that pace is able to be sustained more easily. So I just want to pass that out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's so much in there. So one of the books I just read this year on Howard's recommendation was Ponzer's Burn.
Yeah.
And I mean, the constrained metabolic theory is fascinating. And I think any athlete should read it just for that and kind of understand what that looks like. And that gets into so many other things, like how do you manage your weight? But at the end of the book, he almost throws it in. And he talks about how the brain signaling for fatigue is actually false, right? You still have enough glycogen and glucose and everything in your like until you're dead, basically. But your brain's signaling something. And I wonder if that's really true. And he talks about there are sort of those checkpoints metabolically. They don't really know what it is between a walk and a run. But everybody's like, it's about the right pace, right? There's a pace number that everybody agrees on, but there's no actual mechanic that anybody's sort of been like, yes, this is the thing. So there's got to be something in that allows you're sort of tricking your mind into thinking like, actually, you're okay, dude. And you're able to work longer. That's kind of the idea, right?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. So I've read that book.
Okay. All right, let's go.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So there are 3 concepts that are very important to do with endurance performance and athletic performance. And they touch on running performance too. So there's this concept of VO2 max, which is our maximal uptake of oxygen. So
right.
as a human organism, how much oxygen can we suck up and utilize? And that's measured in liters per minute. Okay? And that gets a lot of attention.
Yep.
Because our watches all now estimate it and actually do a pretty good job.
Yeah, they do.
In terms, I've done extensive lab testing. I used to have a lab in my basement when I was an elite athlete. So I've got data that goes back 25 years on myself. And People like to poo-poo the watches, but they get close.
They're pretty close. I was at Human Powered Health, plug in for you guys, and doing that, and I was surprised. It was actually materially pretty close to the lab test. Yeah,
I mean, considering it's just a watch looking at a few submax workouts and your resting heart rate, it's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of those measures, but your VO2 max doesn't necessarily correlate all that well to how you're going to perform, particularly for longer events.
Okay.
That is going to be more.
And what's a long event in that perspective?
Well, your VO2 max will be a good prediction for a mile.
Okay.
But if you're doing anything longer, and that mile will probably translate okay to a 5K.
Yeah.
You're gonna be getting close. But once we go 10K, half marathon, not so good. Marathon, no link at all.
Yeah.
So, what you'll see is they can give you these tables, these prediction tables, where you can say, oh, here's my 5K time. What can I run a marathon in? Almost everybody just totally blows out on the marathon time because it's not really dictated by this VO2 max factor. Yeah. So there's other factors. So Byrn also talks about the constrained model. So what might be the mechanism? And for someone listening, the constrained model is, the idea is if you just do more exercise, your body will adjust.
Obviously.
But we want it to adjust and get faster, a lot of us. But Herman would say, well, it's going to adjust and get more efficient in an energy management viewpoint. Or maybe it's not getting more efficient, it's down-regulating certain systems.
Really important systems too.
Yeah, immune system, sexual function, recovery, all these types of things.
I thought it was kind of weird that reproductive systems would start to shut down sooner. I was actually surprised by that. I thought that'd be like the last thing that we hold on to. But
if you really push it on the endurance training, you'll feel it actually. And that was one of the things I used to tell my Ironman athletes is when we're in a recovery phase, you want to really feel your sex drive coming up a lot because if it's not, there's a signal there.
Yeah,
in other words, it has been pushed down by whatever stress you're giving yourself. Yeah. So that's
the down regulation that Herman talks about, right?
Yes, down regulation. Yeah. And on the flip side, if we're thinking, what do we want as an athlete? Well, we want these systems to be actually upregulated.
Yeah, right.
We want our recovery to be upregulated. We want to be in an anabolic phase. And this is not about taking steroids. This is just our natural anabolism, which means building ourselves up, getting stronger, as opposed to catabolism, which is when we're doing very hard training or very intense and sustained training, it's going to beat us down. It's going to be catabolic.
Right.
Or if we're constraining our nutrition. So a catabolic state would be a state of energy deficit. And that's why athletes need to be particularly careful, and just a regular person, if you're starting an exercise program and you're increasing your activity, and at the same time you're seeking, well, I'm going to run a big nutrition deficit, you can be down-regulating a lot of these systems.
Yeah.
And so what you need to do is you need to be thinking about, all right, rather than kind of creating this deficit, let's increase the quality of what I'm eating. And a lot of us have things that we eat that really don't fill us up. So starch and sugar, if we think about that. So it'd be dry carbohydrates. So that'd be like pretzels and potato chips. You can get rid of those. And all sugar. So the sports nutrition. So I came back to training. I'm training an average of 2 hours a day. So very active, and I'm gaining weight. And I'm like wondering, well, what's up with that? I'm gaining weight because I added sugar to my diet. Huh. I'm also gaining weight because I was training hard. I didn't have easy training. So my hunger was going up. And so a lot of folks will find, I'm really hungry. I'm starting to eat the sugar with the sports nutrition products. And so what do you need to do? Well, you got to chill out. We got to reduce the intensity so that you're not craving sugar. And then we also have to focus on nutritional quality.
And let's just pause there for a second and kind of come back to one of the mantras that you have. And again, back to this idea that we're in it for the long run.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. What you just covered there is a ton of different theories and different things that you're managing, right? You're managing fuel, you're managing the type of food that you're putting in your body, you're managing the stress load, you're managing a changing metabolism. There is a whole lot going on. And the change that's being, especially if this is new or even anywhere, and that helps support that sort of, let's just go at an even pace.
Yeah.
because it is so much to try to manage effectively. Is that
But
a fair way to put it?
That is how it will feel to people, but that is not how it is. So if we're going to talk about what needs to happen, so like, what do you need to get done? Whoever's listening. So let's run through it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did we say? We said, well, first thing you got to do is you got to wake up in the morning, strength or cardio.
Yep.
That's it. That's all you got to choose. And you don't even really need to choose that. I like to have a basic week, and I like to have the week structure laid out so that the athlete doesn't need to negotiate with themselves.
Yeah, that's smart.
Or their family or their work. The slots are in there, and we are going to keep those slots the same forever.
Yeah.
And in the summer, we're going to maybe expand them a bit because there's more daylight, but really this basic week's just going to stay the same.
Get the habit, build it in.
Yeah.
Just roll.
And we're just going to roll that. And so that is the training piece. No thinking, no decisions required, because every decision is a potential. Every time you got to make a choice, it's a failure point, but also it's fatiguing. You get decision fatigue. So you just set the week with a low bar and you just get it done. You do the week, tick. If you're not doing the week, you got to change the week. You got to make it easier so you can get the week done. Nutrition, really simple. We're going to yank all the sugar, and then we're going to look at what you're eating. We're going to say, all right, we're going to cut the booze in half.
Yeah.
We're going to cut the cheese in half. We're going to cut the bread and butter.
So nobody from Wisconsin can follow this.
No, I'm cutting it in half. I'm not getting rid of it.
All right. Okay.
I've dealt with a lot of people in the real world.
Yeah.
So at first, you just cut it in half. Now for myself, if I'm still eating half, I'm probably going to still eat it all. So I gotta go binary. Binary is easier for me. But I think binary can be daunting for people. Like if it's like, if I told somebody, well, you're not going to eat, everybody has one thing, right? Like it's pizza, or it's ice cream,
donuts,
or it's beer, donuts, or it's beer, or, I had this pad thai addiction for a while. I was eating pad thai 5 times a week. I was like, well, if I change that, but everybody's got one thing. So if you can figure out what your one thing is, all right, let's just get rid of that and keep everything else the same. So and don't eliminate, replace. So replace it with something else. So it's not about not eating, because not eating doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's about just changing and replacing. And so that's actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
So all this stuff about trying to count things and figure out your grams of this and weighing your food and all that stuff, forget about that. You have to make it really simple, because your brain just needs to know, all right, this is the deal. All I have to do is avoid ice cream. Okay, I can probably pull that off. And if somebody's really kind of, I'm not too sure about this, I say just try it for 30 days and pay attention to what happens. So drinking's a good one with that. Yeah. It's like, we're going to knock out booze for 30 days and we're just going to see what happens. Keep everything else the same, because alcohol can be a trigger for a lot of unhelpful food choices. For me, it basically, not only do you get the calories from the alcohol, the disrupted sleep, and then sleeping in the next day, but you get an extra meal at 10:30 at night. So if we can kind of
that extra pad thai, just kind of
exactly.
roll it in.
If we can knock out one thing, we actually eliminate 4 things.
Yeah.
And instead of those 4 things, the next day, we're going to get our workout in the morning. So we're starting a process, a transformation. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying you got to do that for the rest of your life, but let's try it for a month and just see how it goes. Does it move you forward?
It's interesting. Alcohol, we've talked a lot about this through the Masterly journey. And for me, a couple of years ago, I realized that alcohol was the thing that was getting in the way of my training. You could just kind of see it. Like I was putting in the work. I was 99% compliant, right? I'm on this, and I'm just not seeing it. And I would see this pattern. I'd have a couple drinks and I'd take a regression, kind of similar to what you're talking about. And I was like, and I kept thinking, I just need to quit. I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. Like I'm typically more of a binary guy, but man, I would end up failing. And so what I said for my birthday is that I'm going to give myself 360 days of sobriety. And for some reason that was perfect. It was just enough where I was like, I'm not ready to be completely done, but I've got a 98% improvement. Yeah. And it made all the difference in the world. And I think about that, especially again, in a world where I live on a professional basis, which is there's a lot of happy hours, you're going to places and it's front and center. It was a big change, but it had a really, really positive, exponentially positive impact on my overall fitness and living that good life as that amateur athlete.
Yeah. And I think if for some of the listeners who may track heart metrics such as heart rate variability, they will also notice that a very small dose of alcohol will make their heart look like it's sick.
Yeah.
And
It's shocking when you look at it, right?
there might be information in that.
And one of the other best books I love is Alcohol Lied to Me. And it was really interesting to see it in writing that alcohol is poison. And you're just like, why would I, like it starts a different thought pattern from anything I had ever learned.
It depends, and again, it depends on a person's goals. And I think being clear about what the goal is. And by goal, I don't mean a 10K race. I mean, what is your deep motivation? What's missing in your life? What are you trying? What's this need that you're trying to fill? And really, we're getting down to like core motivations.
Yeah.
And try and dig as deep as you can, and then it might make some of these changes easier in a sense. I also think a lot of people don't believe they can do it. And
why do you think that?
What's it? Because they're terrified of failing in public, and I see it with people. And failing's not a big deal. I've had some really big, very public failures in my life, and when you do it, it sucks and it really hurts in the moment, and it can hurt for like a while afterwards. But then you realize, well, actually, here I am, and I've had all these failures, and it's kind of okay. So it's just me building it up in my head. And so you can do it. If you apply these small changes over time, you can take yourself into a completely different spot. And the thing is to choose wisely. It's like, okay, well, who do I want to be? Yeah. Where do I want to go?
Right.
And make it about yourself. Don't make it about beating other people or make it relative to other people. So we can all be a better version of ourselves if we apply the principles of just compounding over time.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to kind of where we were starting, which is, that good life. And part of the beauty, and I love the way that you always kind of come back to those fundamental principles, right? There's all the complexity that you can grab and then suddenly you're lost, right? And then your way of sort of reorienting back into, but why are you here? What's the intrinsic motivator for the things that you're doing?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a good purchase on that, you will get lost a little bit in there. One of the other things that you are pushing even more so, I think, as I've had a chance to really kind of pour through and I've read a lot of Gordo in the past few months, is this idea of community and connectivity. Mm-hmm. How does that play? So motivation is great. That's for me. But I live in a world where I need help. How is community impacting you at this stage? So
this is a neat topic because it can kind of go both ways. So my first year back,
you could be stuck in your basement with me.
Well,
this is the flip side. So when you're not winning, this is what happens.
Just over there is about 3 bicycles on stands. So when I started, okay, so now let's roll it back. So we're rolling it back about 1,350 days. There was a lot of training that was on my own.
Yeah.
Either on a treadmill or on a stationary bike. Why was that? Well, I wasn't very fit. And if I went on a group ride or a group run, I would be going far too intensely.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware of, cautious of that.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of community, my wife has her walking friends. Oh. And she doesn't meet people for coffee. She meets people for a walk, and they just walk around town. And so that's an opportunity to kind of achieve 2 things: catch up with a friend and walk. And I think Steve Jobs was really famous for doing his walking meetings and stuff. And so you can kind of, you can build it into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity for community, but you need to be aware that you have to choose your partners with intent, because in a group environment, people, I mean, if you've ever been at a race start, people literally lose their minds in a crowd.
Yeah.
And it's like horses charging off. And that's from an exercise physiology point, that's not what we need. And so what I say is use the group. So if it is one of those days where you want to go faster, or maybe you're feeling you're feeling a bit blah, and you need somebody to help you get going, you need a partner rather than a group. So ideally a buddy that's a little slower than you would be perfect.
It's easy.
And you have a standing appointment. So I got a friend in town, and we meet out by the local reservoir once a week, and we just do an easy run together.
Nice.
And it's great. So I catch up on him. He catches up on me. We're not trying to kill each other, and we're just jogging around out there. So that can work great.
Yeah.
Likewise, my wife's a swim coach. I struggle to swim fast on my own. I need the group for that kind of session. So if I want to do a quality workout, I'll turn up at that session, and I know the group environment and the fact I don't, it's like my wife is the coach, and so you want to impress her, and so I know I'm going to put in a good effort.
Yeah.
So you use the group with intent.
Yeah.
The other thing is, now one of the nice things with the Master Elite concept is you can have access to people who are sensible and can reinforce what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Because these simple concepts are very powerful, but they don't necessarily come naturally to many of us. We have this, I guess our human OS, the human operating system has certain quirks, which is if someone pushes you, you push back. And it's a bit like that with intensity, training intensity, this desire to kind of ramp up. When our heart rate goes up, our thinking tends to go down. And so as the heart rate comes up,
I'm dumb all the time.
it's a trainable adaptation. You can actually learn to go really fast. And I'm talking like fast relative to your maximum human potential.
Yeah.
For you to go really fast, you actually have to completely relax. So to allow your body to get to your limit, close to your limit, you're going to have to relax as it goes up. Because and there is a real zen to it, and that's why when you figure out how to do it, there's an incredible release. And relaxation, and it's not from the exhaustion. It's from that the mind, in a sense, going a little bit empty, and the body just being allowed to perform.
Okay, so while we're on sort of social and connectivity, spouses.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that my wife, Liz, hi Liz, has been the biggest supporter of my habit and my journey, and she is absolutely essential for me staying on course. Helping build things, support structure, but then also for the days that are tough, right? Reminding me of why it works and why I'm here. How do you see your marriage and relationship, and how do you think about spousal support or partner support in this journey?
Okay, so a couple tips, spouse and kids, actually.
All right, let's go.
So first one is don't coach your spouse. Don't coach your girlfriend, don't coach your boyfriend, don't coach your kids, because the relationship needs to be number one. And as a coach, you will eventually come to a point where you need to say something that is relevant more to the stated goal than the maintenance of the relationship. So
what do you mean by that? Yeah.
I'll give you, it's not my goal. It's not my role to correct my parents. It is my role to live my life true to myself and be an exemplar. That's my role here. And I don't need to say anything to any member of my family because they see how I live. That's my role. So my role is not to state and tell and direct. It is to be.
Yeah.
And so that's an important thing to remember. If you are seeking a leadership in your generation or in your family tree, if you want to be a leader, you embody, you don't direct. And I feel very strongly about that, mainly because I really resent it when people direct me. So I can only assume that like everybody else feels the same way as me. Now some of them don't, So for instance, you will have people in your life and in your circle who actually want a bit of direction.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes to me and asks me a direct, specific question, they will get a direct and specific answer. But I will not consider it my role to do that.
Yeah.
So that's an important kind of like philosophy approach. Now, the other thing, though, is if I'm training with somebody, it is about sharing an experience with them. And this can be really difficult if you're a goal-oriented person, because you are going to come into this session with goals for your session. Well, I don't do that. I don't come in with goals. If I'm training with someone, it's about the with someone, not necessarily the training with them. And so all the goals go out the window. So we used to ski every weekend with the kids. I would actually work out before. So I would get up early, go skin up the mountain, come down,
get it out,
eat breakfast. They would all go skiing. We'd meet for lunch, and then we'd hang out in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And that worked for everybody. So the session is about the individual, the other person, or it's about us just spending time together. Really important with kids.
Yeah.
The kid defines what we're doing, the duration, how fast we're going, because what we're trying to do is create an enjoyment of sport for that child. In a relationship, particularly in an intimate relationship, what are we doing? We're spending time having fun together. And that's the focus. And so we need to stay on that focus. The other thing, nutrition, right? So you're going to have, it needs to be, there's a book out there called Extreme Ownership, worth reading. And really, my nutrition is about me. I am not expecting my kids and my wife to eat the way I eat. Now, here we are. We've been married for more than 20 years. The kids are growing up. By now, everybody all eats the same way. But a lot of people that listening to this, they're thinking, oh, I want to make a change. Okay, if you feel this need to make a change, we talked about that earlier, simple. Make it simple.
Yeah.
But don't expect everybody else to change until you've proven that change is going to be sticky for you.
Yeah.
And one of the things people will watch, it's like, well, is he really serious this time? Or is this just a phase?
Totally. I think that, the authenticity is so central. I mean, that's where I've found in leadership positions the most rewarding and the most effective.
Yeah.
And it can be intimidating. And one of the cultural values we had at my last company was vulnerability. And it seems like an oxymoron, right? I mean, leaders are strong, but actually that vulnerability gave me an opportunity to be an effective leader and to welcome people into that journey in ways that being something closed off just isn't. And you talk about this too in your book a little bit, and some of your writing of also showing up for Trig and for Liz too, is I want them to see me for who I am. I want them to see all the colors, and we talk about the colors of the rainbow. It just is, and if you can't do it in your family, where are you going to do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to share a favorite workout.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, so what you do is you're on vacation, okay? You and Liz are on vacation. What you do is you rent one bike.
This is from the Kama Sutra. Let's just do it.
No. It's just, you rent one bike.
Oh.
Okay?
All right, I like it. Let's keep
So
going.
you got one bike, and whoever's not on the bike gets to run, okay? So if you're in Vancouver, a lot of people rent bikes and ride around the seawall. So instead of renting two bikes, you're going to rent one bike, and you're going to alternate. This is if you're both runners. So if you have both runners in the family, and maybe you're different speeds. So the one bike is you do an interval, and when you've had enough, you get on the bike, and then the other person gets to run, and then you alternate. And you'd be surprised. You can cover a lot of distance by switching with the bike.
Sex lives of endurance runners right here,
and
right? This is the kink.
And you have like a little basket. You can put drinks in. And that's one of my wife and I, that's one of our favorite sessions. If it's just us somewhere, as the one bike run. The other thing is there's these new events that are called swim run events where you're swimming and running. So when you're in the water, you actually have your shoes on, your running shoes.
Oh, interesting.
And you can have a tether that attaches you. And so, I mean, if you're hardcore, you can actually drag your partner like an adventure race on land. But if you are swimmers at different ability levels, the stronger swimmer goes in the front and the weaker swimmer goes behind. So when my son was little, we could do these races together because I would drag him. And then my wife was happy because she's like, well, he's tied to Gordo. He's not going anywhere. I mean, he's not going to drown. And so it's an interesting thing to look into. So if somebody actually knows how to swim and run and they want to do it with a partner of a different ability, it's a way to race at different levels.
Wow.
Another idea for you, hiking. So I got a guy who I used to race with, and he would go hiking with his wife and 2 daughters, and he would have this giant expedition pack and like 100-liter backpack, and he would just carry everything. And they loved hiking with him because he would just carry everything. Yeah. And so it was a way to kind of equalize things, and they loved it. So the whole family could go out and share being in the Rockies up high. And Chris was a bit of a nut, and he'd be carting around like literally everything because he was looking to try and get a better workout.
Gordo Sutra here. There we go.
So just some ideas.
It's interesting. So Liz and I have our thing is what we call an urban hike, and we've done a number of these, and it's really fun. So you basically so we live in the Twin Cities, and we live in St. Paul, and then we just pick a point, approximately a day's walk away, and you just start walking with a backpack, and it's the best time. And it's just fantastic. It's just us. It's talking. You're seeing, usually you're zooming around and you get to see new neighborhoods, and you stop in and see, get some food and drink and whatever. And it's always just the most like rewarding time that we have together. And it's active and it's fun. And I come alive when I do that. I'm more of I'm an introvert by nature. And if I'm sedentary, I don't talk much. But when I get working, man, I just, I yammer away at stuff. So it's a really wonderful time.
Let's touch on something there. Know your best environment. So one of the questions that came from the listeners was, what's difficult? Yeah. So the flip side of that is know what's easy. So if you know that you'll get talking when you're walking, then you do that. Like put yourself in your best environment. Yeah. And so my best environment is in a forest one-on-one with somebody. So if I can put myself in that environment, even if I'm not talking a lot, the vibe is really good.
It's so good. So good. Well, Gordo, we have covered a lot of ground here today. I very much appreciate it. As you think about the stage of life that you're in, you've had change as a constant. And one of the movies that Liz and I watched a couple of years ago, I forget the name of it, I should have remembered, but it was effectively interviewing anyone over 80. And these are people that would have been born before probably World War II and lived through, a lot of them are from Europe. Just transformative stories, right? Like they're in Poland and her mom puts her on a train and never sees her again. These kind of stories. And the thing that stood out to me, the sentiment that was true for all of them was, one, they wish they had not worried so much. And 2, it's never too late to change. How does that impact? I see that theme in your life. How do you carry that arc, or how do you think about sort of the next 30 years as you move forward?
Okay, so a neat story. My dad similar to my story in my mid-20s. My dad had a similar moment, and he was about 70. Yeah, and he was overweight. He had a couple stents put in 4 years previous, and he just decided to go for a walk, and that walk changed his life. Wow! And 10 years on, he is the healthiest person in his peer group. And wow. Literally all the guy does is walk with gradual, over 10-year improvements in choices, like food choices. And it had had a transformative effect on his life. Yeah. So that's just another example of, you can change at any stage of life. Howard's book is really good on that too. The threshold for getting a benefit of strength training or movement is really low. Yeah, that whole 0 to some is where it's diminishing returns. Like when you're training at my level, there is no additional health benefit. It's just you're trying to get a performance benefit, and what people at my level need to watch is that the performance doesn't start to reduce health. Yeah. So we're actually at that point, and you can get up to that point relatively easy. Hour a day is going to give you, all the health benefits. The other thing is looking forward. Let's talk a bit about aging, because I'm getting towards the end of what collectively we call middle age. And a lot of the changes that I've experienced that really started happening with me around 45 that I thought were aging were actually a decline in metabolic health. And so this focus on lifelong strength training and this easy aerobic training will mitigate a lot of what people out there are experiencing as aging.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of the things, energy levels, so loss of function, these types of things are really fitness related as opposed to, say, genetic destiny or age destiny.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, my connective tissues are different at like 56 versus 26. My energy level is different now versus when I was like 18 to 25. Yes, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
But quality of life, the practical, what I can get done, activities for daily living, functional, the ability to ski, do the different things I want, very similar.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And that was a surprise of getting back in race shape. That was
Yeah.
a benefit that I didn't expect. And that benefit came from easy training, not from hard training. So when people are listening out there, there will be a lot of people, as well as their own inbuilt biases, that tell them they have to do hard training to maintain function. They don't. What they need to do is they need to do easy training to improve metabolic function. They need to do strength training to maintain muscle mass and strength. And they need to do a little bit of quick training. Quick is different than hard. Quick is about moving quickly. So it might be jumps or it might be a little bit of plyometrics. It doesn't need to be hard. In other words, your heart rate doesn't need to go through the roof, but what we need to do is generate force very quickly and in different directions.
Yeah.
Agility training, balance, things like that. These skills fade if we don't use them. So it's really the lack of use of these traits than it is an aging thing. So the fact is we don't have them because we haven't used them for years and years. It's not necessarily the fact that we're a certain age. If we can continue to use them and add them back in small doses, we will mitigate a lot of the effects of aging. Howard talks about that this is quality under the curve. So this is maintaining function for as long as we can.
Yeah.
And in effect, pushing out the inevitable while we kind of have our fingers crossed that medical science catches up a bit.
Yeah.
But we can really push this out in terms of things that I accepted about aging when I was younger have proven to be totally incorrect.
Yeah. Well, Gordo, it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you today, getting to know you through your prolific writing and sharing. I know that I am one of many that you have had an impact on, and I thank you for that on a personal basis. And I'm sure I speak for other listeners that are here and thanking you for that. And I hope that, in the Masterly journey and all our collective effort, our mission is to extend the health span of humanity. And part of that is just talking about it and breaking down the misperceptions that we have about it. And so thank you for your time and your contribution to it. I'm very grateful.
Thanks.
Yeah.